the first question. So just to reiterate how this is going to work, it's not going to always be Patrick going first. We're going to go in the same alphabetical order. The next person will go first, and the next person will go first, and so on. So at the end of the evening, everyone will have gone first and last, and etc. To remind all the candidates, you have a full 2 minutes. So if you wrap your question up and there's an answer that you would like to challenge, and somebody else stated, you can use your time wisely and do that. That's perfectly fine. It can be a previous question. It can be 2 questions back. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you. It's your 2 minutes. So the next question.
Steve, may I just answer something on this last one? I think it's very important because I think Mr. Hubbard just knows that good points, and I'd just like to clarify a little bit on. Mr. Hubbard said we need to cut the budget, and I'm proud of the fact that.
Patrick, we're going to go to the next question. You can use your 2 minutes.
Oh, the next one. I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. I misunderstood.
So this question is for Jim Ball. Only me? Well, as long as it's for all, but you're going first. Sorry. What is your position on the millage rate? Is it too high, too low, or do you feel it's about right?
Well,
Tim?
I as well think that, I think it needs to go down. I know it's low, but it needs to be just a little lower. As I said in the outstart, that I wanted my children, my grandchildren, and as time goes on, my great-grandchildren. I don't know how long I'll live, but I'd like for them to be able to have the benefits that I had, or that I have, of being able to live in this county and not have to move because taxes is too high. A lot of folks moved to this county years ago because the taxes was lower here. We're catching up with the metro. Well, we're metro now, but we've done caught up with it, and we're there. I mean, if we don't get a handle on it now, we're going to be past it. And that's the only thing that I'd like to see. I'd like to see them go down. And I know in order for them to go down, we're going to have to reduce spending across the board. And nobody likes that. I didn't like having to reduce spending whenever everything come slowed up the way that it did. Nobody in here enjoyed it, I don't think. There's many people lost their homes on account of it. But listen, we need to get a handle on it now, not tomorrow, not later. We need to start now. Start now. That's what's the matter with America today. Everybody keeps pumping things off and off and off, and we're to that point. Everybody pushed it on off to somebody else. And that's where we're at now. So we need to get a handle on it now. And that's what I'd like to see done. If elected, I'd fight for that, to see it done. Let's get a hold on these things. And I believe everybody in here believes that, but I don't know if everybody in here wants to do that. You got to do it. We got to do it. It ain't a if, it's a got to. We need to. For our children. That's what I'm here for my children, my grandchildren. Thank you.
No, I don't much like government. But I recognize that we're going to have a government. And since we're going to have one, we need to have the most efficient one we can. We're going to have a millage rate. It's going to be high or low or whatever the number may be. But as long as we want the services, we're going to have a millage rate. Could it be lower? Possibly. Could it be higher? Well, maybe possibly too. I do want to talk about a business of transparency, though, and it's something that has bothered me for quite some time. You have a constitutional officer in the sheriff's department, and he runs for office, and you and I elect the sheriff. And the sheriff says he needs this much money or that much money in order to make our county safe and secure. And he goes to the commission and says, this is the budget that I need. Well, right now, about 41% of the budget that the commission has control over is sent to the sheriff's office because the sheriff says that's what he needs. We need to have some transparency on those bills that come out every year. I'll fight for the transparency that you get to see the millage rate that your elected sheriff is holding the board of commissioners hostage for. So we need to pay attention to the millage rate. We need to know where the monies are going, where the mills are actually attached. I do want to say that I am in that category that a rising tide lifts all boats. And I feel that if the pump is primed appropriately, then our county values our quality of life will rise with the rising tide. It's going to come back whenever it shows up. Thank you.
I agree with Mr. Meager in that we need just greater transparency in our government spending. I look back on the last, 15 years that I've been watching the commission closely, and I've just been appalled at the frivolous lawsuits that we've gotten involved in with no hope of winning, that we pretend that the money we're spending is more like monopoly money than it is real money, and that you can't succeed with that. I look at the commissioners that use our county attorney as if he were a counselor or a psychologist, and they won't talk to each other, but they hire him at a lot of money for their lack of being able to communicate with each other. They go through him, and that's just wasteful. We have lots of redundancy in service where we have overlaps that we could try to cut. We have, I believe all department heads, including the sheriff, have to be accountable for every dollar that's spent. I think getting a new jail, and we've been told in SPLOST that, and I did not support it and did not vote for it because of it being a special election and because it was a wasteful spending of $45,000 that I didn't think we should be wasting. But I asked the sheriff when he came and talked to our Rotary Club, can we expect to see a drastic increase in your budget once we have the new jail built and we won't be sending out prisoners? And I was told that we could, and I would definitely pay attention to that if I were elected as your representative. I just think that if we can take and we can correct wasteful expenditures, then we can cut our operating costs, and then we should be able to lower millage rate instead of raising it. Thank you.
Bill?
I have a real simple solution how we can save $5 million on our property tax every year. Quit giving it to the city.
Yeah.
We won't talk about millage rates. The Board of Commissioners really has less than 50% of the responsibility of the tax on their property tax bill each year. Right now, lost amounts, if you look at your property tax bill, you'll see the lost and sales tax, that extra 1 penny we all pay on every dollar. That accounts for about 9% of your total tax bill, where we give 15% of it right now straight off the top to the city. Before you guys ever get the 9% off your property, the city gets 15% of it, or a total of $5 million of property tax credits is taken from homeowners in the Forsyth County and transferred to a city government that 97% of us have no representation in it. We can't vote for it. It's a distribution of wealth. That needs to change. The law says we do have to have a reasonable split, but 15% is way too much. Again, there's a lot has been said at this point. That's pretty much, we're going to have to, it's difficult to sit here and say that you can reduce your property tax. We just have too much obligations at this point to do that. The challenge is to hold it steady and still meet the obligations that were required by law with SPLOST. Thank you.
You have your 2 minutes.
Thank you, Steve. As Jim said, no matter what the millage rate is, people are still going to want it lower. At one time, Forsyth County had a millage rate that exceeded 14 mils. It's now 7.6. And Mr. Hubbard, you're right. We do need to get started, but I got started 3 years ago, and I'm proud of that fact. The 2009 budget prepared by the 2008 board was $104 million. That year I came on the board in 2009, I was on the finance committee. We reduced that $104 million budget to $84 million that year. The following year on the finance committee, I reduced it to $79 million. So I've been there, I've cut. I know how it is. I know how painful it is. I continue to do it. We've had a $24 million reduction in the general fund budget. Ms. Mills was right on the SPLOST projects. I propose that this board provide the taxpayers with a 5-year operating statement on every capital project that was put before you. That was not accepted. I believe you need to know what you're voting on and what the impact's going to be to your budget. You can go back and watch those meetings. It's something that I felt very, very passionate about. Our reserves, and I have to disagree with Bill a little bit, our reserves are fairly healthy. In fact, we'll have a finance committee meeting over the next week or two. It may be where we'll be looking at tax reduction for 2013. The lawsuits, I have to tell you, I've worked for 3 years. I worked with this board, and we brought them to a close. I came into office with a tremendous amount of lawsuits against the Corps of Engineers and all kinds of people that we should have never been involved with. I brought them to a close, and I'm proud of that. So yes, I've worked for you. I will continue to work for you. I'll continue to watch the budget, monitor the budget, and cut the budget. Thank you.